15 worst vintage American cars ever made that nobody remembers. Everybody knows the Edsel. Everybody knows the Pinto. Those failures got books, documentaries, and punchlines that lasted 60 years. But there is a whole graveyard of American cars so bad, so strange, and so completely forgotten that their own manufacturers vanished without a trace. Cars that landed their creators in jail. Cars with a single door in the back. Cars that sold fewer than 5 examples in 3 years. These are not the famous flops. These are the ones history quietly buried, counted down from bad to almost unbelievable. And by the end, you will not believe some of them were ever built. Number 15. The Powell Sport Wagon. Two brothers in Compton, California had a strange idea in 1954. Instead of building a car from scratch, they bought up worn-out 1940s Plymouth sedans, stripped the bodies off, and bolted brand new pickup truck bodies onto the old chassis. That was the Powell Sport Wagon, a truck built entirely on somebody else's 15-year-old bones. The truck came with clever touches, like a slide-out storage tube in the rear fender, long enough to hold fishing rods or plumbing pipe. It was cheap, honest, and genuinely useful. But it rode on aging pre-war Plymouth mechanics, while Detroit was selling gleaming new V8s. And once the supply of cheap donor Plymouths dried up, the whole business model collapsed. Almost nobody remembers the Powell existed at all. Number 14. The Davis Divan. Gary Davis was a used car salesman with a silver tongue and a 3-wheeled dream. In 1947, he unveiled the Davis Divan, a sleek aluminum roadster on just 3 wheels, with a single bench seat wide enough to fit 4 people side by side. He threw a lavish launch at a Los Angeles hotel and landed coverage in Life and Business Week. Here is how it ended. Davis took deposits from dealers across the country, promised them cars, and delivered almost nothing. Only around a dozen were ever built. His workers sued him for unpaid wages. The dealers sued him for their money. And Gary Davis became one of the only car company founders in American history to actually go to jail for it, convicted of fraud. The 3-wheeled future drove straight into a prison sentence. Number 13. The Playboy. Long before a certain magazine claimed the name, the Playboy was a small convertible built in Buffalo, New York, from 1947. 3 partners had a smart idea: an affordable second car for families, priced at just $985, when the cheapest Ford cost over $1,150. It had an all-steel retractable convertible top and independent suspension, ahead of its time. The problem was money. The company built just 98 cars between 1947 and 1949, before running out of financing and filing for bankruptcy. And here is the cruel irony. Some historians believe the failed Playboy car directly inspired the name of Hugh Hefner's magazine a few years later. The car died. The name became one of the most famous brands on earth, and almost nobody connects the two. Number 12. The Keller. Right after World War II, a man named George Keller took over the remains of a failed microcar company and tried to build a compact car for the masses in Alabama. The Keller was a small, practical car aimed at buyers who wanted something cheaper than the big Detroit models. And for a brief moment, it looked like it might actually work. Then, in 1949, George Keller traveled to a distributors convention to drum up support and suddenly died of a heart attack. The company had been built almost entirely around him, and without its founder, it collapsed within months, having built only a handful of cars. The Keller is a genuine what-if, killed not by a bad product, but by a single sudden loss. Number 11. The Towne Shopper. The Towne Shopper was exactly what it sounds like. A tiny economy roundabout from 1948, designed to putter around town running errands. It was a minimalist 3-wheeled machine built in California, with a rear-mounted engine aimed at people who just needed to reach the shops and back without the expense of a full-size car. But its creator, S.A. Williams, could not make the numbers work, and the Towne Shopper vanished almost as soon as it appeared. And here is the detail nobody sees coming. After his car company failed, Williams reportedly abandoned the car business entirely for a new career in counterfeiting. From building economy cars to printing fake money is quite a pivot, and exactly the kind of story that gets lost when a car sells almost nothing. Number 10. The Martin Stationette. In 1949, a company in New Jersey built a three-wheeled wooden car called the Martin Stationette. It had an aluminum and wood body styled like a tiny station wagon, and one bizarre engineering feature: an automatic transmission that used a magnet to connect the engine to the driveline. That is not a joke. The Martin used magnetic coupling in an era when most cars still had a clutch pedal and a stick. It was innovative, strange, and completely doomed. It could link its engine to its wheels with a magnet, but it could never quite link itself to any actual customers. Exactly 2 were ever built. 2. The whole production run would fit in a single garage with room to spare. Number 9. The Crossley Hotshot. Crossley made radios and refrigerators, and in the late 1940s, it tried to make sports cars too. The Crossley Hotshot of 1949 was America's first post-war sports car, a tiny lightweight roadster with an advanced overhead camshaft engine. On paper, brilliant. In 1950, a Hotshot even won its class at the very first Sebring endurance race. So why is it forgotten? Because that clever little engine was a disaster in the real world. Early versions used a sheet metal block held together with brazing that corroded and failed constantly, building a reputation for unreliability that destroyed customers' trust. Crossley collapsed in 1952. A car that won at Sebring and pioneered the American sports car, killed by an engine that kept eating itself alive. Number 8. The Gaylord Gladiator. 2 brothers whose family fortune came from inventing the bobby pin decided in 1955 that they would build the most luxurious car in the world. The Gaylord Gladiator had a powerful Cadillac V8, a retractable hardtop roof that folded away automatically, and a price tag of $17,500, which is roughly $210,000 in today's money. They had it engineered and built in Germany by an offshoot of the Zeppelin airship company, which could not build the cars correctly. The Gaylords were so unhappy, they sued their own manufacturer, and production collapsed after just 3 or 4 cars. 2 went to genuinely famous buyers: King Farouk of Egypt and actor Dick Powell. A car for kings, built by an airship company, killed by its own quality problems. Number 7. The Muntz Jet. Earl Muntz was a wild television salesman known nationwide as Madman Muntz, and in 1949 he decided to build a car. The Muntz Jet is generally credited by many historians as the first personal luxury car, predating the Ford Thunderbird by years. It had a powerful Cadillac or Lincoln V8, a sleek, streamlined body designed by legendary Indianapolis race car builder Frank Curtis, and real long-distance grand touring comfort. So why does nobody remember it? Because Madman Muntz reportedly lost around $1,000 on every jet he sold. The car was expensive to build by hand. The business bled money, and Muntz shut it down after only a few hundred were made. He invented an entire category of American car, the personal luxury coupe, then walked away before anyone realized what he had started. Number 6. The Stout Scarab. This might be the most important car on this list that you have never heard of. Built by aviation engineer William Stout starting in the mid-1930s, the Stout Scarab was, by most accounts, the world's first minivan, decades before Chrysler supposedly invented the concept in the 1980s. The Scarab had a rear-mounted Ford V8, a flat floor, and a reconfigurable interior, where the seats moved around and a small table set up in the middle, exactly like a modern people carrier. A later prototype was even the first car in the world with a fiberglass body and air suspension. And it failed completely, because it was wildly expensive and looked like a giant metal beetle. Only 9 were ever built. The minivan was invented in the 1930s, and America simply was not ready. Number 5. The Survival. In 1958, a man named Walter Jerome was so disgusted by how unsafe Detroit's cars were that he built a protest on wheels and gave it a pun for a name: the Survival, as in survival. It is one of the strangest looking vehicles ever constructed, built in 2 separate hinged sections. with the engine in the front section and the entire passenger cabin in a second section behind it. The driver sat in a raised turret in the middle for 360-degree visibility. It had seatbelts, a roll cage, sliding doors, and rubber bumpers, safety features that would not become a standard for decades. But the car looked so bizarre that the public treated it as a joke. Only one was ever built, and it was forgotten. A car that predicted modern safety engineering, dismissed because it looked ridiculous. Number 4. The King Midget. From 1946 to 1969, a tiny company in Athens, Ohio, built one of the smallest cars ever sold in America, the King Midget. It started as a single-seat machine that looked like a half-scale race car, and it was sold partly as a mail-order kit you could assemble yourself. It had a one-cylinder engine and could reportedly return up to 90 miles per gallon. Here is the twist. It was not really a failure like the others. The company made a profit on every car, and it outlasted Tucker, Edsel, DeLorean, and Hummer combined. But it built only around 5,000 cars in more than 20 years. And because it was so tiny and humble, almost nobody remembers it. It was the most quietly successful car company nobody has ever heard of, killed only when 1970 safety laws made such a machine impossible. Number 3. The Mose Austin Tatienne Opera Sedan. The name alone tells you everything. In 1967, a man named Bruce Mose, who ran a seaplane company in Wisconsin, built what might be the most bizarre luxury car in American history. The Mose Austin Tatienne Opera Sedan was built on an International Harvester truck chassis, weighed nearly 3 tons, and cost $19,600 at a time when a nice house cost less than that. It had no side doors at all. You entered through a single door in the rear, because Mose believed solid steel side rails would protect passengers in a crash. The tires were filled with nitrogen. Options included Persian rugs and a built-in refrigerator. Mose claimed he could build 3 or 4 a year. In reality, exactly one was ever made. It survives today, restored by 2 Wisconsin high schools, the sole example of the most ostentatious car nobody remembers. Number 2. The Scootmobile and the Microcar Graveyard. By the late 1940s and 1950s, dozens of tiny American companies were throwing microcars at the market and watching them bounce off. The Publix was a 300-pound three-wheeler with a steering wheel you could slide to either side of the car. There were dozens more, names like the Bobby Car, the Imp, and the Freeway. Nearly everyone died within a year or two. They were underpowered, unsafe, and built by companies with no money and no dealers, going up against Ford and Chevrolet at the peak of Detroit's power. An entire generation of American small car dreamers was wiped out almost completely, and today their cars survive only with a few dozen obsessive collectors. It was a mass extinction event history simply skipped over. Number 1. The Bricklin SV1. Malcolm Bricklin promised to build the safest sports car in the world, and instead, he built one of the most infamous disasters in automotive history. A car so troubled it took an entire Canadian province's finances down with it. Launched in 1974, the Bricklin SV1 had futuristic gullwing doors and an acrylic and fiberglass body in bright colors that never needed paint. It sounded incredible. In reality, those 90-pound gullwing doors were so heavy and poorly engineered that they frequently failed to open or close. The body panels warped and did not fit. Build quality was catastrophic, and the cars cost far more to build than they sold for. The government of New Brunswick had poured over $20 million into the project, and when Bricklin collapsed into bankruptcy in 1975, with fewer than 3,000 cars built, it took that public money down with it and helped topple the provincial government itself. A safety car that could trap you inside, funded by taxpayers who never got their money back. And unlike the DeLorean it resembled, no blockbuster film ever arrived to save it. It just quietly became the car almost nobody remembers, which is exactly why it sits at number 1. Here is the strange thing about every car on this list. They were not built by fools. They were built by dreamers, inventors, and salesmen who genuinely believed they could beat Detroit at its own game, and every one of them lost. The minivan, the personal luxury car, modern safety engineering, all of it was sitting right here, in these forgotten failures. years and sometimes decades before anyone else got the credit. History remembers the winners and the famous flops. But the real story of the American car is buried in these strange, doomed machines that almost nobody remembers at all.